So, Dave, you obviously run a marketing agency over in Canada. How did you decide that marketing was your thing? Like, what made you pick it as a career? What excites you about it?
Yeah, actually, it's a pretty funny story. I had this idea in my head when I was a kid that I was going to get into advertising. I don't have a clue where it came from. My uncle ran like a second cousin's uncle or so some family member ran a car dealership, and I was fascinated by it. And I always wanted to get into cars, and then that evolved into advertising for some reason. And then in my 20s, before like really early 20s, before I really got into marketing or advertising at all, I was in sales. And I had this idea in the back of my head that I was going to own a company called The Marketing Guys. And I don't know where this all came from. It just like the way my life started to evolve. And then I was in retail sales, and I got into managing a store, uh, advertising for the store, and just starting to learn those things. And then I eventually worked at the Yellow Pages, worked for a local newspaper, kind of handled all of the sort of print to digital transition. And then 10 years ago, the opportunity came up with my close friend who I was working with at the time, and we decided just to start a company, and we did it, specifically because of the lack of data and transparency that most advertising companies offer. And we were working in a corporate job, and we really were kind of handcuffed in terms of the results and the reporting that we could offer our clients. And it just made sense for us to start exploring our own partnerships. And so it just, long story, but it came from this idea when I was a kid that this is something that I wanted to do. And it just through my life kind of just materialized as I progressed through my professional career. So it's funny the way things happen like that.
Yeah, that's cool. I like how life just kind of flows and you just sort of end up like when it works doing what you want to do. And that's cool that you had an idea of what you wanted at such a young age. That's something I have not had that in my entire life. Like it's just jumping around, trying things, trying this and that, and eventually falling into marketing and obviously falling in love with it and AI as well and working in that industry. So what sort of does it like a typical day look like? You mentioned advertising and sales. Like, is that kind of like your core focus or what's your sort of your specialty?
Yeah, I mean, from a business perspective, we're a data first business. So, we just try to really live and die by the idea of transparency that businesses need to understand any impact of what they're doing, whether it's, running an ad or building visibility on Google through SEO or just building a really good website. We find that lots of agencies are very controlling over certain things. They charge a retainer, they spend money, they don't always tell you how it's going, what they're doing, or really what the impact is. And so, although we do a lot of the same things that most agencies do, the typical website design, SEO, Google Ads, social media, programmatic, we do it in a way that's really laser focused on the conversion. And then we make sure that all of those conversion points are set up and identified. And then the client has access to all of the ad platforms that we're running media on, all of the analytics channels. They have a nice dashboard that they can use to access their campaign data. And ultimately, the goal is that they're performing and they can see it, and we can help them understand the impact. So that's where we sort of built a little bit of a niche for us in the market. And although we have a million competitors that run Google Ads or that do SEO, the thing that keeps clients coming to us is just that we ultimately do everything from inside their business as opposed to controlling everything for them.
Yeah, that's cool. I like that there's that transparency element. I remember listening to a podcast or an audiobook, and they mentioned that there was a advertising agency, and when the client decided they wanted to change to a different agency, they locked their Google Ads account and said, "No, you can't have any of the data, any of the material. This is all proprietary." And so that it was basically a ploy to keep the client to stay with them, which the
Yep.
client ended up doing because they were like, "Well, we don't wanna lose all our, ad content and everything that we've," even though they paid for it through like a retainer or whatever. So yeah, it's interesting hearing stories like that about agencies that don't have that transparency because I think that's super important, especially from a client perspective of, yeah, like I was talking to someone else about this, what is the ROA? Like what is the impact? Where is the measurement of the results, rather than just let's just, do all these different things and not track anything.
Yeah, I think lots of agencies, they just want to build the brand, right? They want to build the brand will do the work. But we have this challenge in our business when it comes to client retention. We see it all the time where we can build an ad campaign, we can build language, we can start seeing success. And there's nothing stopping a client from taking that internally and just continuing to run with it. And there is no intellectual property to building a Google ad campaign or writing language. So, you can try to tie people in based on contracts, but generally speaking, you hope that, the relationship, the work, the growth begins sort of speaking for itself and that client stays with you. But we've been in lots of situations, where a client doesn't have the resources to hire a marketing manager. They need an agency. The agency starts seeing lots of success to the point where there's revenue coming into the business, and then the business wants to now bring everything internal and start hiring again, maintain their own control. And there's nothing wrong with that. I think that you have to set up some clients to have those expectations that that's what you're working towards. And then the other side is obviously, again, making yourself invaluable with the right types of optimizations, the right type of learning, the right type of reporting, and just sharing insights in a way that customers see that, oh, if I looked at my own Google Ad account, I wouldn't be able to get that same information. So, although they could take it, run it, and go take it somewhere else or run it themselves, our job is to make sure that they understand that, we're taking Google certifications. We're learning things that they can't. We're not just taking auto recommendations from the Google sales reps, which, have often tanked many successful campaigns. So I think that's just, again, the idea of transparency is not just here's how your campaign's performing, but as an agency, this is why you're partnering with us and how our team is now, doing stuff that's really impacting your business in a positive way. So that's super important for us to beat that drum and share that message all the time.
For sure. And I think it's easy for businesses to be like, oh, it's going well. Like, I'm going to bring it in house and just tinker. And it's like you could change one variable and it could potentially destroy the whole campaign or affect it positively or negatively. And I think, yeah, people don't always, yeah, understand the repercussions. But what do you see as being like some really key things to do when running, say, Google ads or Meta ads? Like, yeah, do you have like a template or does it depend on the client, the industry? Like, what's that process look like?
I mean, it's pretty similar across the board. I mean, all businesses have access, obviously, to the platform, and there is a lot more that goes into it than just setting up keyword language and turning on campaigns. I think the key for an agency like us is because of our spends in Google, we've reached a point where Google allows us to beta test certain things. So, they have a platform called AI Max, which is similar to Performance Max. That's in beta, and again, playing around with the AI summaries and things that Google's integrating in terms of AI products that they haven't fully brought to the market. And that's, when they brought in Performance Max, we're able to beta test that and get it to the market and get it to our clients before they would have had access to it on their own. And AI Max is very similar to that. So again, for us, it's being ahead of the curve, understanding what's coming, understanding how to test and utilize the tools, and then integrate them into which clients. Though when it comes down to client versus client versus client, we try really hard not to work with people who are competing against each other, because then we just end up competing against ourselves. At the end of the day, you have agencies that are, I only want realtors, I only want dentists, I only want, roofers, and at the, then what they're doing is they're buying the same ads for this guy and this guy. And, when you're trying to gain market share, you're just competing against your own budgets. And, it's not the way we like to do business. So, so that's part of our strategy, is just doing that competitive intelligence, understanding what other people are doing in the marketplace, understanding when we do run a Google ad campaign, we're looking for our total search impression share for every keyword. That's a value that a lot of marketers don't look at, or a lot of businesses don't look at. And what it actually tells you is, based on all of the impressions that are available for each individual keyword that you're buying, what is your budget getting you in terms of market share? Is it 10% of the search of volume? Is it 20% of the search volume? And now we tie that to a conversion point, an email, a phone call, a purchase, and we can determine, do we have a scalable keyword? Do we have a keyword that can now scale and get better results or better performance? So we're not looking at everything just from a campaign level. We're
Mhm.
looking at everything from an individual keyword perspective, so we can understand, again, our market share and our conversion value. And then we can take that back to the customer and go, you might think, oh, I need to add another 100 keywords or 200 keywords because that's what Google's telling you. But really, the secret sauce is you're missing 80% of the market share that's available to you on the keywords that are actually giving you your results.
Right.
So you'd be shocked how many agencies don't provide that insight, and it's a really easy thing to get to. The data is all there in Google Ads, and most people just aren't A, not trained to look at it, B, don't understand the value of it, or are just trying to report on the simple things like impressions and clicks and conversions, and they're not taking a customer deep enough into their ad platform to show them that there's other things there that are valuable to them. The agencies that live and die by impressions and clicks, there's so many of them. And all they're doing is putting the onus on the business owner to tell them whether or not their campaign is running with any sort of value. And again, that's just not the way that we're kind of bred to do things.
Yeah, yeah, it's very easy to get caught up in the metrics of, "Oh, I'm getting all these clicks and my click-through rate is this and my impressions are this," and it's like, "Yes, but is that converting into a sale or an acquisition or a lead, or is it just data that looks good?" Like, "Oh, I've got this many clicks and it's my cost per click's really low," and it's very easy to kinda get hyped up on those metrics, but without actually having, like, a tangible result, kind of like you mentioned with that, yeah, checking, like, is this following through into becoming a client?
Yeah, especially when you have seasoned marketers that's all the data that they've been given for years. And they might understand or they might have asked for more, but they're kind of just so used to getting those generalized reports about visibility, that they're kind of they're eyes open up a little bit when they go, "Oh, there's actual data backing up what we're doing." And then they start asking more questions and then diving in, and we get to take them on a bit of a journey to go, "Okay, now what can we actually uncover that's unique to your business?" That might be a certain product. We tell, retail stores, we can uncover a dud on your shelf. If you have a product that's not selling, we can determine, okay, you're getting lots of market share, but it's not selling. Maybe this is a product you need to move away from. Or the other side of it is we have a product here that you don't sell a lot of, you don't keep a lot of inventory, but our impression share is very low and our conversions are very high. We can scale that product. And again, agencies don't take it down to that level all the time. They look at things from a campaign perspective. As long as your campaign is selling products, great. But, are there better performing products? Are there better services that you could offer? Are you a roofer who has chosen not to offer solar? And is there opportunity for you to gain market share in solar? We can tell you that before you even decide to offer that product. So it's important to feel out whether or not you've got, opportunity in the marketplace before you do anything.
Mm. No, that makes sense, and going more into that kind of micro level data to make decisions, I think is really cool. And then so in terms of, like, keyword searching and running ads based on a set of keywords, what are you sort of looking for when you're selecting keywords? Are you going long tail, short tail? Are you looking at volume, like competition, cost per click? Like, how do you choose, like, a set of keywords for a client?
Yeah, I generally it's very generic, right? Like you're doing your typical keyword research. AI, there's so many different tools that have made keyword research a little bit easier. And they're very industry specific. So you just have to sort of tailor it to your business and what they're offering. But there's so many great keyword research tools that again you can just look up and find access to. Some are paid, some aren't. But when we're doing keyword research, we're thinking a lot about now, obviously, voice search. We're all thinking about AI summaries as they're related to ICO and to our content. We're thinking about if somebody searches for something, what's the experience that they're going to get on our landing page, and we're making sure that our search, our keywords, our language all match the experience the user is going to have on the back end. Because if somebody does a long tail search for something and you appear for that and they click on it, and then all of a sudden the language is different on the landing page, they end up feeling they're in the wrong place and they're not going to convert. So it's great to do keyword research, but we also have to match it with, okay, are we following it up with the right type of language to match the keyword. And then a lot of the data comes once you turn the campaign on. Once you turn the campaign on, we understand again the market share and the visibility, the opportunity for each of those keywords, and then we begin optimizing to whatever is getting us the best volume. But it all starts with what the experience side of things, what industry, what keywords are very typical, adding in some AI for some keyword research, and then determining how are we presenting the client when somebody actually performs that search, and then following the data.
Hmm. And then do you find in terms of like number of clicks per, say, lead or acquisition, does that vary depending on like industry or service type, product type, or do you find it's pretty consistent? Like usually it's, 300 to 500 clicks to get a client, or maybe it's 100 clicks to get a client. Does that, yeah, what sort of does that data look like?
Yeah, it actually varies wildly. And most of the Google expectations, like if you look up something, a certain industry, they might give you an expected click-through rate
Like an
or a
average
cost per
industry.
acquisition.
Yeah.
It gives you a bit of a benchmark. And I often say to people, and it's sometimes become harder to close a client when you say things like this. But I often say, if I tell you those expectations, they're just numbers, and I'm often lying to you. Like, it would be irresponsible of me just to say, hey, this is your benchmark expectation. I can give you some industry agnostic, but again, those are often built on businesses that aren't in your geographical region, that may not be selling the exact products, that don't have the same level of competition. So I tell everybody, you learn it in 90 days. You spend some money, you got to be willing to spend some money, and then you learn what your market share opportunity is in that first 3 months, and you can make some decisions whether or not there's an avenue there for your business to grow. The benchmarks are fine. I mean, you can look at it. I find that, they're nowhere near accurate. And the other thing too is, like, it's really easy for an agency to build a campaign based on certain expectations that don't achieve sales.
Right.
So I can get you a high click-through rate. I can get you a low cost per customer visit or cost per click, but ultimately it has to turn into somebody liking the product that you have, liking the way you represent yourself as a business, and doing business with you. And like, the way you represent yourself on your business is different than the way other people do. So there's a little bit of trust factor that you can't get put any guesswork into that. So I find that a lot of agencies on their proposals, but this is your expectations. You're going to get X amount of leads. Your cost per acquisition is going to be X. Your click through rate is going to be X. And then there's a big reason why the burn rate of clients leaving agencies is between 6 and 18 months, is because they didn't meet those expectations. Maybe they set the bar too high,
Right.
or it just it at the end of the day, the trust broke because they didn't match what they said they were going to do in their proposal. With us, we've had a lot of clients for 3 years. We have clients for 6 years, for 8 years. We have agencies who challenge our clients, and our clients stand up for us and the work that we do. And I often relate it directly to that statement of, if I set your expectations before you actually start advertising, I'm lying to you, and I refuse to do that in a lot of ways. I'll give you some industry benchmarks if you want them, so you can see it, but I'll do it with that sort of breadth of, hey, take this with a grain of salt. You've got to do this for your own business. But once you do, again, the data is very clear of whether or not you've got opportunity.
Right. Right. And you mentioned, so like the 90-day window and being willing to spend obviously on ad spend and test, and a lot of it is, trial and error and figuring out what works and what doesn't. Do you sort of advise clients, look, it's probably gonna, you need to sort of put up this amount to kind of for the ad spend, or does it kind of again vary per client?
It varies per client. And also, what we're talking about right now is a new client, somebody who's never
Of
spent on
course.
Google Ads. If we're talking about a client who has a Google Ad account established, who's been doing it for X amount of years, I can audit that account. It's not going to cost them anything to put a set of eyes on their account. I can poke holes in the way their account was set up. And I can also tell them that opportunity, whether or not, they're missing an opportunity to scale a product or to scale a service or just get more market share. So it's a little bit easier to benchmark things when you have an existing account. If we're talking about a new account, As an agency, we're going to say spend, 1,500 a month, 2,500 a month. Like we're going to say spend somewhere in there. We know what it takes for our team and the number of hours that it's going to be invested into writing language and building campaigns and getting through those first couple of months of optimization. And so, in Google Ads, you can spend whatever you want. There's not necessarily a minimum.
Mhm.
People with experience will tell you that it's a bit of a forced minimum, because if you're going to expect any level of results, you have to be competitive. A local business in Canada is spending anywhere from 2,500 a month to $6,000, $7,000 a month in Google Ads specifically, and they might be spending another 1,500 to $5,000 on Meta
Mhm.
ads a month. And then they're scaling there if they can. Local businesses, your typical plumber focused on a specific service geography and product is going to tap out or cap out at some point based on the spend. But once you get into that sort of 1,500 to 2,500 a mark, we know we're hitting some competitive nature. We know we're gaining some market share. We know we're covering the investment of time of somebody optimizing, growing, writing language for a campaign. So at the end of the day, there's no minimum. There are some forced minimums though to be competitive, for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that makes a lot of sense. And I think it's helpful, I think, just for listeners and business owners to understand it is an investment and it isn't something that you can just throw a little bit at and just hope it works. It's really like, I guess it's like an investment strategy. You want to consistently put in an investment of time and money and how and consultants or experts to help you get a decent return on your investment. And it's very much possible, and kind of what you put in is what you get out, which is cool. So then I guess to sort of shift into sort of AI, what do you think the impact of AI will have on, say, Google Ads or SEO or marketing in general?
Yeah, I actually think for the most part on the advertising side, it has a negative value right now in a lot of ways. What we're looking for, again, building ad language is an ad score, and we find that and reducing duplication. So when we find that we're writing language with AI, we have to be very detailed in the way that we're editing that language because it's giving us the same language that it's giving other businesses. So it's really easy to write and create campaigns that are essentially being duplicated by other businesses or that are sharing same language. And ultimately, customers are looking for trust in businesses. So AI language is still fairly easy to read for most part. You can read something, an email from somebody or a statement online, and you can feel out whether or not it's an AI written statement. Some easier for others, but when it comes to SEO, for example, and that long tail search or that voice search, it's all driven by web content and domain authority. So your SEO today is more important and more impactful than it's ever been because again, this is unique language that's driven based on your business to engage your customers. It doesn't have to be written specifically for customers. It still follows the guidelines of writing for keywords, writing for robots, writing for visibility. But that content strategy ultimately follows the idea of building a strong FAQ. When you build a strong FAQ, you're answering customer questions. You're building content that search engines can say, okay, here's a long tail search. Where am I going to pull that answer from? And if I've got a website, a local business website that's answering those questions, it's going to give you a sort of an opportunity to get into those AI summaries and again, jump the line. So we have businesses who are struggling to gain market share sometimes in SEO for the first, 6, 8, 12 months, because we know it takes a year to 18 months to really see growth in SEO, but they're gaining visibility through AI summaries because of the strength of the content that's on their website. So they're jumping the line of the SEO, the businesses that have strong SEO, and utilizing the AI summaries to get involved. And it happens a lot with events. Like we had a wine market saying we're not advertising our wine tastings, and we go to the Google AI summary and we search where can I go for a wine tasting in Calgary? And sure enough, their business pops up here and we go, you see it's so much more now than just my wine tasting moved from page 5 to page 4 to page 3. If people are utilizing these summaries. And then when you talk to Alexa or you talk to your Google Home, more and more of that is driven by these AI summaries. So it's really important, I think, for any business. Go into Google and search for a product and ask a very specific question about your business. Who's the best transmission specialist in my region? And then see what comes up, right? And then you can find ways to now begin writing content that matches that summary. And there's lots of AI tools to help write content. You just have to edit it very specifically. And again, it's really, really impactful for SEO. So long-winded, to answer to two different questions. On the ad side, be careful of duplication. Be careful of writing campaigns that are just following other people's strategies. Find a strategy that's unique to your business. But on the SEO side, understand how these AI summaries are working, the impact of search on AI, and then following it up with your own content and building a content strategy based on an FAQ or those frequently asked questions is ultimately the biggest impact we're seeing right now.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was reading about this the other day actually, and how we're moving. Well, like we're obviously in an information age, but moving into like a very like hyper specific information content age, where it's like people using these LLMs or AI tools to get information, and they're asking like very very hyper specific questions, and they're looking for very specific answers. And so I liked what you mentioned about the FAQ page and doing more of these long tail questions and keywords of, it may not be that we need to like create a whole page of content for one question. It's like maybe, yeah, it's just an FAQ page that has all these different questions. And so the LLMs can come in and just grab these, tidbits or these paragraphs of information. And because it is much more of like a custom specific experience, and information that like the end user is looking for, which is, I think it's really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you take that idea even further, that FAQ can now dictate your social strategy and your content strategy for video. So I just shared this with a local business that we just met last week, and we were talking about video content and social media. And it's all great to say, "Oh, I want to shoot videos," but essentially, if you start with that FAQ, let's say you write 25 frequently asked questions about your business, and then you begin developing blog content. So each of those 25 FAQs has a blog. Now you have 25 blogs. Now you film a 90-second video on each of those blogs. Now you have 25 90-second videos. And then you now start editing each of those videos into 6-second clips for YouTube Shorts, 15-second clips for Facebook and Instagram advertising, 30-second clips for organic posts. And you're driving back to that blog or driving back to that piece of content. Now you've got 2, 3, 400 videos that are all driven based on your 25 questions that you built in FAQ. So you've got great social media content, you've got great blog content, you've got a voice for your business. You're using all the different platforms, and you want to talk about increasing your domain authority very quickly. What does it take to film 25 1-minute videos when you already have a prepared script with a blog? It's a heck of a lot easier than people think it is to get to that level of content.
No, I like that idea, and especially in terms of like content repurposing, like rather than continually reinventing the wheel, it's like, okay, yeah, we've got our FAQs now, let's do blog posts. Then it's like this kind of flow on effect of not have like using less brain power and like keeping the core keywords and the core focus. And then, yeah, you end up with all of these videos and all of this written content across a whole bunch of different platforms. So you're reaching people kind of all over. You're not just hammering YouTube or hammering blogs. It's like it's a very integrated marketing strategy.
Yep. Yep. 100%. And then, like I said, with the AI summaries, they'd see all these different pieces of content and all from the same source, right? And then
Exactly.
that's the impact that we're looking to have.
Yeah. No, that's super cool. And so then in terms of, I guess, automating or bringing more efficiency into the content creation process, what are some of the like AI content creation or editing tools that you're using in your agency?
Yeah, like we use like a phrase, for example. Phrase is a really good platform for just content topics and generation. But outside of Chat GTP for writing, and again, I'm not the writer, so I trust that we have really good writers in house, and that if they have AI tools, we're using them, but we're also ensuring that there's a human element to it. We're not copy and pasting AI content, that we're editing it to a point that's unique for our business, but also for our client's business. So I'm not going to speak too much about very specific platforms because, yeah, like I said, I'm not. I can talk a lot, but writing is not my my specialty. It's understanding how to do these things and then empowering the right people to do them, which I think is the key to hiring a good agent.
Hiring a good team.
Yeah,
Yeah. So did you mention phrase? Is that like PHRASE, the
yeah,
tool, or yeah,
FR, yeah, FRASE, yeah.
or FRASE? Okay, I'll pop that in the show notes. So, and then have you played around like much with like automations, or is it kind of more content generation that you're focusing with AI?
I mean, we use typical automation tools like HubSpot, and we use pretty much any platform that our client integrates into their business. We're not trying at an agency to control access or ownership of any of those specific platforms, but we do make recommendations kind of based on what they're trying to achieve. Obviously Shopify has great automations to it. HubSpot has great automations to it, but most platforms have different levels of automation to them. We're still, somewhat afraid of the social media content done for you by AI platforms. Because again, I just think it's way too generic and often easy to see through. Even Meta, doing the AI driven images, so you can build an ad campaign. You don't even have to have your own images. You can have AI write the language plus plug in the image. We find that if you again have a unique creative, you have a unique primary text that goes along with it, then you can use the AI to build it in a way that it feels is going to most impact the audience, adding emojis or a different structure of your content that just reads more fluently or reads better to an audience. Again, we often start with this thing that we have created or thing that we have ownership of, and then we find an AI tool to potentially make it better or make it more impactful. So I think there's too many, and it's really just easy to see when somebody is fully using AI to create the image of their business. It's easy to see that it's not often the best way to represent yourself. So we're still doing it the old school way as much as possible, and then just trying to
Mhm.
find tools that can help along the way.
Nice, nice. That's super cool. And then
Yeah.
in terms of like, say, using ChatGPT, what's your favorite kind of non-business way to use it if you have one?
Um, I think, unfortunately, I don't get to take my business hat off too often. I'm a president of a community association. I'm on a board for a large rec center, and then we've got the business, and then I'm always a part of these networking groups and things like that. The only thing I seem to do outside of golfing or playing hockey is coaching my kids. So, yeah, I will use it sometimes to find different drills for coaching soccer, or it might point me actually to a YouTube creator or somebody who's creating lots of good videos or content for kids of a certain age that are learning certain things. In the exact same way that TikTok did it, ChatGPT seems to be following. TikTok, I always say they took this idea that people were learning how to dance and learning how to do things themselves. on their platform, and they turned it into a behavior by beginning to advertise it. They created this whole TikTok taught me idea. And then TikTok is now like the second most used search engine, essentially. Like it competes with Google. And I do it all the time. If I'm going to travel, we just went to Pittsburgh. I go to TikTok, show me all the best places to visit in TikTok, and I watch or in Pittsburgh, and I watch all these TikTok videos about where I should be going and the markets and things like that. And so, there you got to be aware of that for sure as a business and how people are using TikTok for search. But ChatGTP is very similar. You can ask ChatGTP to tell you, give me the best places to go in Pittsburgh, and it's going to give you the best restaurants. It's going to give you the best tourist spots, the best places to take a photo, the things you don't want to miss, right? And so
Right.
when I travel, as much as, Google is my friend when I'm there, usually before I get there, I'm using ChatGPT or I'm using TikTok to find all the cool things that I should be doing when I'm there. And then when I'm boots on the ground, I'm using Google for location. And then I'm also like, okay, maybe I can't go here, but is there something closer to me?
Yeah. No, that's cool. Yeah, I used it for something similar. I was planning like a long bike trip in New Zealand, and so I wanted to figure out, how many Ks could I comfortably do a day, and like where would all the suburbs be, and like accommodation. And it's like it's amazing. Just it's like this assistant that can help plan travel or trips or different things, and it gives you different ideas, and it's cool because it's pulling obviously from review platforms and different people who have traveled there and Google Maps and different things, but it's also, yeah, it puts it all together in a nice coherent way that, yeah, it feels like you have this personal travel agent in your pocket.
Yeah. And then you can say, now build me an itinerary for Thursday to Sunday so I can do all.
Exactly.
And it tells you, yeah, Thursday at 1 o'clock, you're going to be here. Friday at 2 o'clock, you're going to be here. Right. And it gives you you can follow it as much as you can or want. But, but yeah, it is pretty outstanding how all these tools just very quickly, we're talking about minutes, tell you exactly all the cool things you could be doing in a week when you've gone somewhere totally new in the
Exactly,
world.
and honestly, like, that's, like, my least favorite part of holidays is the planning and the booking and the research, and so to have ChatGPT or an AI tool be able to, like, do it for you or with you is makes it a lot easier and more enjoyable, I find.
Yeah. Yeah. The other side of it too is like, we do these big surveys and it's really great to be able to take all that information and put it into an AI tool. It's like, hey, now give me the top 10, the summary of this survey and the learnings
Yeah,
from it and summarize it. And then we can take that and go, oh, is there something in here maybe that we didn't see or maybe something that we missed? So yeah, as a marketing agency, there's no end to the amount of ways you can use it. I'll go back to the same thing I've said probably two or three times. It's just making sure that it's unique to your business and edited and humanized. And
yeah.
if you're going to take any of that information and make it public, again, just making sure that you've combed it and you've built it in a way that is unique to your business because it really makes a bigger impact to a customer when they're going through that and understanding it. But everything from here's my general strategy, now build it out to taking these long formats of information and condensing them it's a huge time saver for sure.
For sure, for sure. Well, yeah, thanks for coming on the show. If people want to connect with you or learn more about your business or your agency, where can they connect with you online?
Yeah, it's pretty simple. Just infrontmarketing.ca. If you're on LinkedIn, Dave Taylor, Infront Marketing, there's going to be a million Dave Taylors. So throw the business name in there and I'm pretty easy to find. But yeah, we work with people all over the world. We have advertising running all over the world. We have clients all over North America and the US and Canada. And then, like I said, advertising running in Europe and South America and South Africa and the US and Mexico and Canada. And so always happy to take a deep dive. When I say an audit is something, whether it's a website audit, SEO audit, a Google ad audit, a social audit, that we can really just take a deep dive into what people are doing and what the challenges are. And that gives us some really good information about how to move forward. And then I'm always just open to conversation. So thanks for welcoming me here today and look forward to to keeping on doing this again sometime.
Yeah, sounds good. It's been great chatting, and thanks for coming, and thanks everybody for listening.